We often think of travel as an escape, as an outward journey, a change in our routine. But I'd like to suggest that often the most powerful journeys we take are those inward journeys, those voyages of self-discovery, transformation and growth. Last year, there were over 1.4 billion global tourists. You may have been one of them. I'd like you to close your eyes and think about the last time you travelled. It may have been somewhere in your home country, it may have been somewhere very far away. I'd like you to focus on that place. You may have been in a beautiful city, on a beach, watching the sun set over a shimmering ocean, or halfway up a mountain, the cold wind blowing past you. And picture that place. We're going back there together. And I want you to think about the people who you went with. And think about the people that you met, people you interacted with. And ask yourself why. Why did you go? Why were you there? What was your purpose? What was your purpose? And now think of that place. You may have been there recently, it may have been some time ago. How is that place now? How was it different after you left? And how were the people different? The people you went with and the people you met and interacted with. And importantly, inside, how did you feel? How were you changed? How was that purpose? And you can open your eyes now, we can come back to where we are. I'd now like you to think about what you were doing in the year 2005. 20 years ago, right? Hard to believe. You might not have been born, you might have been on that adventure of a lifetime. You may have been working 9 to 5, wondering when you would get to travel. I was starting a different sort of journey. I had just left school. I was a quiet, nervous, fairly anxious teenager. I would certainly not have been comfortable standing up here on stage, sharing thoughts, stories and feelings with complete strangers. As I say, I'd left school and I decided I wanted to become a doctor. I enrolled at medical school in London, and over the next 5 to 6 years, various exams, eventually graduated. Started work in the busy NHS. A baptism of fire to a degree, working in emergency medicine, women's health, children's health, surgery, you name it. And I decided I wanted to become a GP, so a family medicine doctor. Another few years of studying, exams, and in 2017 I qualified as a GP. I'd reached my professional summit, that peak of everything that I'd wanted to achieve. And it'd taken over a decade of training and commitment, and I should have felt wonderful, right? I'd reached what I wanted to do. But I felt none of that. I felt quite the opposite. I felt low. I questioned my purpose. My sense of self, my sense of identity was lost. I was really questioning, where was my path going? Had I taken a wrong turn? Had that last 10 years been in vain, or was there something else I could do? Now, this is not a sob story about those experiences or burnout within the NHS. What I hope to do is share some of the lessons that I have learned since then and think about how we can apply that to our everyday. Now, some of these feelings, these emotions, you may have experienced similar. We know whether we acknowledge it or not, and I know it as an NHS GP. We're in somewhat of a mental health pandemic. 1 in 4 of us in any given year is going to be suffering with their mental health. How do we slow things down in such a fast-paced world? How do we slow things down and reflect? We're not so good at talking about these things. Zooming out, how do we find that purpose? So that was a question that I was trying to answer at this point. And I discovered, some of you may be aware of this, the Japanese concept of ikigai, The idea that there are 4 areas within our lives that if we can address and fill up, we can feel more complete and more fulfilled. You can picture 4 overlapping circles. Some of these things, when we stop and pause, can seem sort of obvious, but sometimes it takes a crisis or a moment to actually stand back and think, what am I doing? What is going on here? Trying to do something that we love, trying to do something that we're good at, ultimately doing something that pays us as well, because yes, unfortunately, we all do have bills to pay. And then that 4th area is what the world needs. Maybe we're not so conscious of that. I think as humans we have this existential yearning, this desire to see change and impact. Whether we are consciously acknowledging this or not is a different matter. But the idea that we can take aspects of our various roles, our life, our job, our home, and feed into these different areas, that can make us feel more complete and more fulfilled. And that really resonated with me, and it's something that I carry with me going forward. So I was looking to start my Ikigai journey, see where my path was going, see where that journey was taking me. Had I wasted that last decade as I feared, or was there something else I could do? Luckily there was something, blending the art of medicine with adventure and travel with a purpose. And over the next few years, I spent time working as a doctor on various expeditions and events. But the uniting thing was that I was helping other people achieve their purpose, reach their summits, whether that was literal or metaphorical, helping them on their Ikigai journey. Whether that was working with a group of women as they trekked through the extreme temperatures of the Jordanian desert, raising money for charity to reach the ancient city of Petra. Whether that was supporting athletes as they trekked through temperatures of -30 in the world's coldest Arctic ice marathon, or supporting the cast and crew of TV shows on remote Pacific islands. These things were all united by that Ikigai and helping other people complete their journeys. Or something that is particularly close to my heart, working with young people, bringing often disadvantaged individuals into the wild, into that wilderness, and seeing them with a blank canvas, away from social media, away from technology, seeing them thrive, grow and develop, something that is so fulfilling. And I still do many of these things. But I was looking for the next step on my Ikigai journey, something that would unite my interest in medicine, travel and global health. And I came across a small charity called the Virtual Doctors. Now, the Virtual Doctors are a charity registered in the UK and also in Zambia, existing to connect remote clinicians in rural villages in Zambia and Malawi with doctors such as myself in the UK. The idea that we can use technology, smartphones and telemedicine to bring specialist advice to rural villages, meaning that a patient doesn't necessarily need to walk a day or two to their nearest hospital. And this really appealed to me, so I cautiously emailed them to see if I could get involved. Now, fast forward to present day, I have been honoured to be the charity's volunteer medical director for coming up to 5 years, and it's something that has been really rewarding, both personally and professionally. It has filled up some of those circles, if you like. And towards the end of COVID, towards the end of the pandemic, myself and the charity's founder, Mr. Hugh Jones, we set up an expedition, an idea that we could unite healthcare, history, travel, something that we love and what the world needs. Called the Livingston Revisited 2024 expedition. It was going to be a 3,500 kilometre journey around Zambia, onboarding clinics, finding out more about healthcare challenges. And I was going to be organising it, leading it. And if you told me, that shy teenager, that disillusioned junior doctor, that GP lacking any sense of identity and purpose, that this was something I could do a few years later, I'd have told you to go away. I would not have believed you. So what did we do? A group of 11 of us, last September, arrived in Zambia. We were united by purpose, but we also had different reasons for being there. One member of the team had just left the military and wanted to join a civilian expedition. Other members of the group wanted to connect with youth, connect with the challenges their country was experiencing. Another member of the team had had some difficult personal experiences when travelling and just wanted to rediscover the joy that travel can bring us. So we headed up the Great North Road, up past the corridor of the DRC, driving our vehicles past convoys of huge trucks carrying precious metals and copper across this vast continent, the scale of which is hard to imagine. We went off-road, weaving in and out of switchbacks, crossing rivers and ending up at a very dry Victoria Falls. It didn't look like the pictures. We were not awash with spray. It was fairly symbolic, really, of the challenges Zambia is facing and will face again in the next dry season. Challenges such as drought, food insecurity, power rationing, and issues with healthcare. As I said, our purpose was to onboard new clinics, to find out more about the challenges. For me, as an NHS doctor, I wanted to be able to understand the challenges my fellow Zambian clinicians were facing. It comes back to making connections, understanding stories, challenges with seeing patients with limited access to medications, to diagnostic information. Basic things we take for granted, running water, power. Stories of having to deliver babies in the night using just the light of a mobile phone in otherwise darkness. Central to what we were doing was making that human connection. We do so much online, emails, meetings. When was the last time we stood in the same room as our stakeholders, shaking hands, looking each other in the eyes, sharing thoughts, feelings, vulnerabilities? That's when we can make sustainable connections and sustainable progress. And how was this for me? I've told you that I lacked identity, I lacked purpose. For me, I felt this was the summit that I hadn't reached before, that purpose that I'd been looking for. I thrived, I developed, I grew. I was really pleased with the team I brought together. People from different cultures, different paradigms. And yes, sometimes there were challenges, of course there were. But we grew and we thrived and we grew in resilience. So that's all very good, but how is this relevant? How is this relevant if you're listening? We said at the start, we often think of travel as this outward journey. Can we take that and bring it inside? Can we apply some of these ideas to our everyday? I believe we can. Travel makes us curious. Can we take that curiosity, that intrigue, that interest, and apply it to our lives at home, apply it to our work, our families, pass it down to the next generation? Can we become this community of curious humans with a purpose? What a world that could be. Curious humans with purpose. Travel lets us slow down. We're not so good at slowing down. If we slow down, if we zoom out, we can get that context. We can start to understand. We can start to look at where we are and where we want to be, where we could be, where the world is and where it could be. It's no secret that at the moment we are at a difficult period in history, financially, politically, environmentally. The world needs us. We need to acknowledge these problems, and travel gives us that context, that ability to work together. Hopefully by now you're starting to agree and understand that travel with a purpose is more of a mindset. We don't have to be standing in the middle of Zambia, the Arctic, the desert. We can be standing right here in the middle of our communities, at the top of Penevan, the highest point in South Wales. And we can ask ourselves, are we just passing through, or are we making it count? Because when we travel with purpose, we don't just see the world, we can help change it. Thank you.